The echo chamber of public schools, or house school, has become a social experiment in gender segregation. Um, Women represent the vast majority of teachers, principals, and other authoritative staff. Even the lunch employees are usually women. That's not to say that there's something inherently wrong with women. However, the real world, especially in corporate America, has a more diverse gender structure. And it's kind of ironic how feminists will claim that there's no equality in corporate America for women in positions of power, yet I see deafening silence when it comes to having more males in positions in our public school systems. We know that men and women are different, not only physically but mentally. We're simply wired differently to perceive input differently. That's part of what's kept us a surviving species for a very long time. Darwinian evolution, it's pretty obvious that men and women have to be different. We had different purposes for the overall survival of the species. So I won't get too deep into that. I think anyone who would disagree with that statement, maybe not the Darwinian evolution statement, although I think it still applies. I meant the statement about that men and women are different mentally and physically. I think they're being intellectually dishonest, or worse, they're not able to see through their own ideological uh, viewpoints to recognize kind of a pragmatic reality, or reality itself. I can kind of speak to this from experience. I'm currently putting my own children through the public school system, and I've worked in the corporate world for well over a decade now. This is kind of exposing my age as a late Gen Xer. So keep that in mind. Not that it's particularly relevant, although in some ways it is. Okay, so from an administrative perspective, public schools haven't changed much, at least not from my time. The academics and curriculum have improved in some ways, I think, while simultaneously regressed in other ways. Specifically the areas of STEM, the science, technology, engineering, math, is an area where I think my child does better in, specifically math. However, he's not as interested in reading, writing, and literature as I am. I think he takes after his mom in this way. However, the school administrators disregarded his advanced mathematics knowledge in favor of pushing him into reading and writing. And I think that's a more comfortable area for women generally, is kind of the literature, reading, and writing. I can relate to that because that's kind of my interests. However, science advances humanity. Science moves us forward. Science gets us to that next step in human kind of cultural or societal technological advancement and evolution. So to me, there seems to be, in this echo chamber, as I'll call it, of women, kind of the lack of the ability to understand nuance of childhood learning. I would say additionally, it seems as though this type of groupthink is rampant in areas where the environment is an echo chamber. So an example, and men are prone to this as well, but we're specifically talking about the educational system right now. But you look at, I hate to use the cliche Nazi Germany, but the Nuremberg trials of I was just following orders. That was kind of an echo chamber too. You don't see this echo chamber in the corporate world as much, and I would fiercely argue against anyone who claims that, because in the corporate world, yes, there are more men in positions of power, or tend to be. However, those men are very aware of the fact that there needs to be diversity of race and gender in the workplace. All right, that no business wants to gain a reputation of being 100% white males. It's bad for business, and they understand that they need other points of view. And could the corporate world have more women in positions of power? Sure, but in a meritocracy, people are promoted through the corporate world based on merit. It's a system that works very well. And I've seen a lot of women in the corporate world who have done very well for themselves and done better than I have as a white male. So with that said, I would argue that women are a little more prone to rule following and their lack of ability to make quick judgments on protocols, processes, procedures, things like that. I've seen this in the corporate world. I've seen it in the educational system, putting my children through that public educational system. And it seems to me that the rule itself is more important than the spirit of the rule. And if you've ever taken any basic law classes in university, there's, you know, kind of the letter of the law and the spirit of the law. The same sort of thing applies in rules, and I think there are intentions of rules that may not always be written appropriately. So, and I think this happens a lot, and it seems to me that women generally seem to me, or and this is probably proven. I'll look it up, but they seem to appreciate organization more than men. You know, everything has its place, everything in its place sort of idea, and that system of approaching problems tends to translate into the way they teach children in an educational kind of surrounding. But children are more chaotic than that, right? You can't apply the letter of the rule across the education of children, because it just doesn't always work, and they don't always recognize intention. So, and I would argue that the feminization of our public schools has vastly created this echo chamber and has done nothing to improve the academic experience or prepare our children for life outside that echo chamber in the real world. The real world is much more diverse, gender diverse, racially diverse than most public school systems. You know, you've got public school systems in poorer neighborhoods, predominantly minorities, and I say minorities, typically it's not a even diverse category of minorities. If it's in a neighborhood with a lot of black people, then predominantly the school is going to be an echo chamber of the black viewpoint. And that doesn't do anyone a favor. I'm not saying we should be busing rich kids into poor neighborhoods or poor kids into rich neighborhoods, but I would argue that school choice, charter schools, things like that definitely benefit people. But that's a different discussion. I would say, and in fact, the feminization of teaching has only gotten more prevalent over the years. It's estimated that more than 3/4 of all teachers, kindergarten through high school, are women, according to Education Departmental data. This is up from 2/3 3 decades ago. So it's obvious to me that women probably, I mean, I would say that the primary reason for this, I don't think it's ill-intended. I think, you know, it's obvious to me that women probably go into teaching because they're allowed to have a better work-life balance that allows mothers to sync their work schedules with those of their children. So I think this goes back to other studies that have shown that women tend to not advance in careers, especially in the corporate world, because they're more focused on being mothers. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. In fact, you know, women who stay home and raise their children, I think, are taking a huge responsibility in making sure that their child is prepared. You know, but however, you have to make sure that that these children are being represented properly. So I would just say, finally, and in closing, you know, the greater issue is that it's well known that boys tend to struggle in school more than girls. It's been studies that have shown this, and this is apparent in that boys have no role models in their academic lives. You know, I speak for boys or men in general, we relate to men better than women, just as women relate to other women better than men. I mean, you know, indeed, how many times have you heard a man or woman complain that they don't understand the other sex, the other gender? You know, boys needing male role models does not reinforce gender stereotypes. That's just a reactive feminist kind of response to keep our educational systems feminized and controlled by women. And I just want to say that, you know, I'm not saying there's a conspiracy here, but there is a bit of a knee-jerk reaction to creating this gender diversity in women-controlled environments, yet they advocate for that same kind of social manipulation in areas where there are more men. So I would just say that boys, I think, desperately need role models who can reach them, and to not do what's in the best interest of our children for just simply for the protection of an ideological monopoly is just an absolute tragedy. So that's pretty much all I have to say on this subject. please hit the like button if you like the video, subscribe, and comment below. What kind of experiences do you have with the educational system or the corporate world in general? How do you feel about this subject? So, the American Iconoclast, talk to you later.